The ending of Heartstopper Forever isn't built around a shocking twist or a dramatic farewell. Instead, it explores something much more relatable. What happens when two people who love each other begin carrying the weight of protecting one another instead of simply being honest? By the time the credits roll, Nick and Charlie are still together, but not because they found a magical solution to every problem. They survive because they finally realize that love isn't about rescuing someone. It's about choosing each other every day, even when life becomes uncertain. Nick and Charlie break up, but it isn't caused by a lack of love. It happens because both boys are trying to protect the other. Throughout the film, Nick becomes anxious about Charlie's well-being. Charlie notices that Nick has stopped eating properly, seems distracted, drinks too much at Christmas, gets into a fight during rugby, and is constantly carrying an invisible emotional burden. Eventually, Nick reveals what's been haunting him. His recurring nightmare isn't simply about Charlie dying. It imagines Charlie relapsing into his eating disorder while Nick completely fails to notice. In the dream, Charlie dies believing Nick could have saved him, leaving Nick convinced he failed the person he loves most. That nightmare completely reshapes how Nick sees himself. He begins believing his purpose is to protect Charlie. When he asks, "If I can't protect you, who even am I?" he exposes the unhealthy responsibility he's placed on himself. Charlie recognizes what's happening. Instead of feeling supported, he starts believing he's becoming another burden. As university approaches, Charlie concludes that Nick has spent an entire year worrying about him. Wanting to free him from that responsibility, Charlie suggests they should have space once Nick leaves for Leeds. Charlie never intends to end the relationship. He simply thinks Nick deserves freedom. Nick, however, hears something entirely different. To him, space sounds exactly like a breakup. Because neither of them says what they truly mean, the conversation spirals into heartbreak. Nick walks away, believing Charlie no longer wants him, while Charlie watches him leave, convinced he's doing the selfless thing. The tragedy is that both boys are motivated by love, but neither communicates it clearly. The breakup exposes a painful truth that Charlie himself had underestimated. Throughout the film, Charlie appears healthier than ever. He becomes head boy, gains confidence, confronts bullies, and even creates a queer support group for younger students. From the outside, he looks completely recovered. But healing isn't something that stays finished forever. Once Nick leaves, Charlie's emotional foundation collapses. He barely leaves his room, he stops eating again. His therapist returns to grounding exercises, asking Charlie to focus on simple objects around him just to survive overwhelming anxiety. Importantly, the movie doesn't portray this as failure. Recovery is shown as something that requires constant maintenance rather than a permanent destination. Charlie's relapse also demonstrates why Nick's fears weren't entirely irrational. The difference is that Charlie's health isn't Nick's responsibility, it never was. Nick spends most of the movie believing strength means never showing weakness. That belief comes directly from his father. The film quietly reveals childhood memories where Stefan criticizes Nick for not being tough enough, not speaking French well enough, and generally failing to meet impossible expectations. Although Nick rarely talks about those experiences, they've shaped everything about him. He becomes the kind of person who believes other people's happiness depends entirely on him. Only after the breakup do several people finally help him recognize this pattern. David surprisingly admits their father damaged him too. Sarah explains that making mistakes doesn't make Nick a bad partner. Working at the dog daycare gives Nick something outside his identity as Charlie's protector or rugby player. Instead of constantly caring for one person, he learns to simply care. Then Sarah delivers the film's most important lesson. She tells Nick that love isn't destiny, love isn't fate, love is a choice. That completely changes how he views his relationship. Rather than trying to guarantee Charlie's future, Nick realizes he only needs to keep choosing him. Charlie's support group represents one of the movie's biggest victories, even though it isn't treated as a dramatic climax. Early in the film, the school refuses to approve the idea. Mr. Lange worries about creating special treatment. Mr. Ajayi quietly offers a different perspective. Officially, Charlie should follow school policy. And officially, Ajayi reminds him that queer people throughout history have rarely received permission to exist safely. Charlie understands exactly what he means. Instead of waiting for approval, he advertises the meetings through student meme pages and simply opens the room. At first, almost nobody comes. Then students slowly arrive. The first is Alfie, the same younger boy Charlie rescued from bullying. That moment completes Charlie's own character arc. Years earlier, Charlie survived because teachers like Mr. Ajayi quietly protected him. Now Charlie has become that safe person for someone else. His story comes full circle. Nick and Charlie's reunion only happens after they both stop trying to fix each other. Nick spends weeks looking through the instant camera photographs Charlie gave him. Each picture reminds him that their relationship wasn't built on responsibility. It was built on shared joy. When they finally meet again, neither tries to defend their previous actions. Instead, both admit the real problem. They stopped communicating. Nick finally confesses that expressing fear has always been difficult because he learned growing up that vulnerability pushed people away. Charlie admits he misunderstood Nick's concern and assumed he'd be happier without him. Once those fears are spoken aloud, they lose much of their power. The reconciliation feels satisfying because nothing external changes. There isn't a miracle cure. The future remains uncertain. Nick is still leaving for Leeds. Charlie still has anxiety. Long distance will still be difficult. The only thing that changes is their willingness to tell each other the truth. Returning to the music room where they shared their first kiss beautifully mirrors the beginning of their relationship. Back then, neither could imagine what lay ahead. Now they stand in exactly the same place with years of shared memories behind them. Charlie makes perhaps the biggest admission of the entire movie. Before meeting Nick, he couldn't imagine having a future. Now he can. That line reaches far beyond romance. Earlier in Heartstopper, Charlie struggled simply to survive bullying, isolation, and mental illness. Now he's planning university, imagining adulthood, and looking forward to ordinary mornings together. Nick's response perfectly captures the movie's tone. He jokes that he loves Charlie more than his dogs. Charlie laughs. Nothing about the conversation is overly dramatic. It's wonderfully ordinary. That's exactly what both characters always wanted. The closing montage shows every member of the friend group beginning the next chapter of their lives. Nick settles into Leeds. Charlie visits him, borrowing his hoodie before they head out for breakfast together. There are no dramatic declarations, no wedding, no promise that life will always be easy. Instead, the final scene celebrates something much simpler. After years of bullying, anxiety, eating disorder recovery, family struggles, and fear about the future, Nick and Charlie finally get to experience what once seemed impossible, an ordinary relationship. The film argues that growing up doesn't mean becoming fearless. It means accepting that uncertainty is unavoidable while continuing to choose the people you love anyway. Nick and Charlie don't end the movie believing they'll never struggle again. They end it believing they don't have to face those struggles alone. That's why the final image isn't a grand romantic gesture. It's two young men walking to breakfast together, confident that whatever the future brings, they'll keep choosing each other one ordinary day at a time.